We're in Book 10, the Book of the Double Twilight, and we've come to Canto 1, the dream twilight of the ideal. But in what we were reading last time, we have not yet reached that dream twilight of the ideal. We are still in the eternal night. There's this terrible darkness that Savitri has been passing through. And even it is painful, it is suffering. But we read last time that Maya, the power of illusion, death is trying to convince her that everything living and the universe in which she lives and loves, it is all illusory. But Sri Aurobindo says Maya is a veil of the absolute, a truth occult, a real hidden truth has made this mighty world. Darkness is a magic of self-hidden light. Suffering is some secret rapture's tragic mask. Behind the suffering, there's a delight. It's just wearing this mask. And death, an instrument of perpetual life. I think that's where we stopped last time. Yeah. Although death walks beside us on life's road, a dim bystander at the body's start, and a last judgment on man's futile works, other is the riddle of its ambiguous face. Death is a stair, a door, a stumbling stride the soul must take to cross from birth to birth. A grey defeat, pregnant with victory. A whip to lash us towards our deathless state. The inconscient world is the spirit's self-made room. Eternal night, shadow of eternal day. Night is not our beginning, nor our end. She is the dark mother in whose womb we have hid, safe from too swift a waking to world pain. We came to her from a supernal light. By light we live, and to the light we go. Here, in this seat of darkness, mute and lone, in the heart of everlasting nothingness, light conquered now, even by that feeble beam. Its faint infiltration drilled the blind, deaf mass. Almost it changed into a glimmering sight that housed the phantom of an aureate sun, whose orb pupilled the eye of nothingness. A golden fire came in and burned Night's heart. Her dusky mindlessness began to dream. The inconscient conscious grew. Night felt and thought. Assailed in the sovereign emptiness of its reign, the intolerant darkness paled and drew apart, till only a few black remnants stained that ray. But on a failing edge of dumb lost space, still a great dragon body sullenly loomed, adversary of the slow, struggling dawn, defending its ground of tortured mystery. It trailed its coils through the dead, martyred air, and curving fled down a grey slope of time. Although death walks beside us on life's road, a dim bystander at the body's start, and a last judgment on man's futile works. Other is the riddle of its ambiguous face. Death is a stair, a door, a stumbling stride. The soul must take to cross from birth to birth, a grey defeat pregnant with victory, a whip to lash us towards our deathless state. In our lives, death is always accompanying us. He's walking beside us on life's road. He's there when we are born, a dim bystander, somebody who's standing nearby and watching at the beginning of our life, at the body's start. And he's like a last judgment on our futile works, all the useless things we do. It's as if once we are dead and gone, what will they mean, all those things that we tried to do? So Sri Aurobindo says that's true, but in fact, other is the riddle of its ambiguous face. We think that the face of death is telling us something, but it's ambiguous. It's not, it could mean this or it could mean that. And perhaps it doesn't mean what we usually think that it means. Now he will tell us, death is a stair, something we can rise up on, a door. It's a kind of stumbling stride that we have to take in order to cross from one physical birth to the next one. Stumbling, it's when you bang your foot and almost fall. So maybe it seems like a fall, or death, it's an accident. But in fact, it does take us further. It may look like a grey defeat, a defeat by death, by the dissolution of things. But he says it's pregnant with victory. It's going to give birth. That stumbling stride, that step is going to give birth to a great victory. And then he says, death is a whip to lash us towards our deathless state. That the bullock driver uses a a whip to make his bullet go faster or to go the way he wants it to go. Death impels us, pushes us to look for the way to find our own immortality, our deathless state. It doesn't mean that we will always live in the same body, that the body will never die. But we must discover that part of ourselves which is free from death, which is deathless, which can pass from one birth to another birth without stumbling at all. Jana, you would read?
The unconscious world is the spirit self-made room, eternal night, shadow of eternal day. Night is not our beginning, nor our end. She is a dark mother in whose womb we have hid, safe from too swift awaking to world pain. We came to her from supernal light. By light we live, and to the light we go.
Yes. So these are lines that I'm very, very fond of. And we have a painting in the Meditations on Savitri series of night. Night is not our beginning nor our end. And for me this painting is special because for these paintings the mother used to make sketches for Huta. But then at a certain stage she stopped somewhere in the middle. Perhaps book 7 onwards. But right at the end she made 2 sketches for this painting. One in pencil and one in ink. Very, very beautiful, both of them. So we have copies of those sketches somewhere. So this is Sri Aurobindo telling us, although death claims to be the creator of this inconscient world, here he tells us that this inconscient world is the spirit's self-made room. It is the spirit who has made this world for itself to live in. Eternal night. Savitri is experiencing eternal night. But that's just a shadow of eternal day. Night is not our beginning, nor our end. She is the dark mother in whose womb we have hid. We have hidden in this dark womb of unconsciousness as a protection, safe from too swift awaking to world pain. We have to pass through this phase of unconsciousness and partially growing consciousness so that our deathless state within us can become strong enough to enable us to face all the pain of the world. We came to this night of inconsciousness from a supernal light, a light on the very, very highest levels. By light we live, and to the light we go. When we leave this world of darkness, we return to the light. Suresh, you would read?
Here in this sea of darkness, mute and lone, in the heart of everlasting nothingness, light comes to us now, even by that feeble beam. Its faint infiltration trails the deep mass almost it changed into a glimmering sight that housed the phantom of an aureate sun, whose are pupilled the eye of nothingness.
Very mysterious lines, no? But here, in that world of darkness, in the seat of darkness, mute and lone, where Savitri seemed to be all alone, in that silence, that vast silence, in the very heart of that everlasting nothingness, there's that faint light is following them. No? Light conquered there in the heart of the darkness, even by that feeble beam. It's not a very bright light, but still, even a very faint light can make you see in complete darkness. So that faint infiltration, filtering in to the darkness. It's like drilling into that blind, deaf mass of darkness and hostile silence. And it almost changed, he says, into a glimmering sight. Glimmering is a faint light. Describes a faint light. A sight, a power of vision. Of course, from the material point of view, we experience that we see because we're surrounded by light. Light enters our eyes, it goes into our brain, we see something. But there's another point of view by which we can understand that it's the consciousness which looks out and sees something. The power of vision which looks out. So it's something like that. This light contains in it a power of vision. And within that power of vision, there's a phantom, a ghost of a golden sun, a sun with a capital S, that sun which symbolizes all the consciousness and energy and light of the Supreme. So it's as if there's a great eye of nothingness which can only see darkness, but into that eye of darkness, of nothingness, comes this little light like a pupil. The pupil is actually the part of your eye where the light goes in, but maybe it's also where the consciousness goes out. So in that eye of nothingness, as if there's some shadow or ghost of the Supreme Sun which is looking out. Is it clear? Infiltration, I mean, technically, physically, it means filtering something into something else, one solution into another, or into some salts. You might infiltrate water that spreads and dissolves. But it's also used in another sense. It's what spies try to do. If they are gathering intelligence for their government against the enemy, they will try to infiltrate certain groups and have an influence there. So both those suggestions are in this word. This light is trying to infiltrate into the darkness, maybe it will be able to convert it to light. Heather.
A golden fire came in and burned night's heart. The ductile mindlessness began to dream. The inconscient conscious grew, night sad and silent.
Yes. So, as the effect of that little light, a golden fire, a fire of truth light, came in and burned the heart of that night. And the result is that dim unconsciousness of the night, she begins to dream. She begins to become conscious. The inconscient begins to become conscious. The night, all that night of unconsciousness, begins to feel and to think. Sudha, would you read?
Excuse me. Now all these things being is told by Sri Aurobindo.
This is Sri Aurobindo. He's telling us how we should symbolically understand this situation that Savitri is in now. Before, she was being absolutely attacked by the darkness, no? And by the voice of death trying to convince her. But Sri Aurobindo says what death was saying is not the truth. This is the truth. Death is hiding this kind of truth. And that little light has always been with Savitri. It's growing. Now he says that light conquered. Even though it was such a feeble light, it's enough to conquer the darkness, light up the darkness, bring in a power of vision, a power that even changes the heart of the night, so that she begins to dream, to feel, to think. Consciousness comes into the inconscient.
But still she was not afraid of that nothingness, and that's why she was passing through.
Yes. And because of her courage and her determination and the strength of her soul, now that darkness is having to give way. And we should never believe that we are born from the night and that we will just die back into the inconscient night. We've come into this state of darkness, but we've come from the supreme, supernal light, and we are carrying it with us. And when we leave, we will go back to that light.
Sailing on the sovereign emptiness of his reign, the intolerant darkness paled and drew apart, till only a few black remnants stained that way.
So this is what is happening. It's like a dawn, no? It is that before the dawn light comes, there's everything is ruled by emptiness. The emptiness is the sovereign. But that emptiness, darkness is getting attacked. Assailed, it means to be attacked. So that darkness was so intolerant, it didn't want to allow any light. But it's becoming pale, it's no longer dark. A little bit of dawn light is coming in. And gradually the darkness draws apart until there's only a few bits of darkness left, a few black remnants stained that ray, that wonderful ray of dawn light. Mila. Yes. Failing.
Edge of darkness lost to space. There's still a great dragon body sullenly gloom. adversary of the slow, struggling dawn, defending its ground of torture and mystery. It trained its courage to the best marching air, and carving lay down a various log of time.
Yes. So the light has come, the dawn is beginning, but and there's only a few black remnants left, but somewhere there in the background there's this great dragon body. This is the dragon of the dark foundations described in the Veda. He's the one who's guarding all the treasures in the inconscient. He's not so easily conquered. But here he has to flee. It is the adversary, the enemy of that slow, struggling dawn. It's defending its ground, its basis of mystery, mysterious. But it's such a painful mystery, tortured mystery. Dragons, long, curly creatures, it trailed its coils through the dead, martyred air, as if the air is suffering. And curving, fled. It runs away down this grey slope of time. The darkness disappears for some time. Chandra.
There is the morning delight of the gods.
Twilight, morning twilight.
Twilight of the gods. Miraculous from sleep, their forms arise, and God's long nights are justified by dawn.
Yes. There's a tradition about the twilight of the gods, and usually it means the time when the gods are dying, when they're fading away into the darkness. But here Sri Aurobindo says there's also a morning twilight, when the darkness is giving way to the light. So there's a morning twilight of the gods, when they wake up. They've been sleeping, but now their forms arise miraculous, and the long nights of God are justified by dawn. The dawn is so beautiful, it seems worth having the night in order to experience the beauty of the dawn. And of course it's wonderful to remember that every night is followed by a dawn. It's as if the night gives birth to the dawn. Patricia.
There breaks a passion and splendor of new birth, and pure-winged visions stray across the lids. Heaven's chanting heralds waken dim-eyed space.
So as the gods wake up, dawn breaks in a passion and splendor of new birth. And there's something really magical about that first light of dawn. The colors are very, very beautiful. And here he says that visions stray across the lids, the eyelids. So he uses this word lids for the eyes. We may see magical visions in that dawn light. These visions have wings with beautiful colors. And heaven's chanting heralds waken dim-eyed space. In the early morning, the birds begin to sing. The dawn chorus. He refers to it a couple of times in Savitri. The early morning and the birds singing, welcoming the new day. You read with that?
The dreaming that looks behind the scene and fashion in that thought the ideal world, starting from limitless moments of desire that once had love and pain, a small heart.
Yes. So the gods, as they wake up, they are still dreaming a bit. They look beyond the seen into the unseen and fashion in their thoughts, they imagine the ideal worlds that have been born from, that have sprung from a limitless moment of desire that once had lodged in some abysmal heart. The abysm or abyss, it's the very deepest part of the ocean. And we use the word also to mean the darkness. So perhaps there was this heart of nothingness and darkness. Perhaps in the very, very core of it, there had been a moment of a desire for light or for something different. So now as the gods wake up, they give form to that, those ideal worlds that have been, they're fashioned in their thoughts, but they've sprung from a limitless moment of desire. I think it's a moment which is beyond time. That moment had once been lodged, it had been staying in some abysmal heart, in the heart of some deep darkness. But out of it, the ideal worlds can emerge. You like to read? No. Joel.
Past was the heaviness of the eyeless dark, and all the sorrow of the night was death. Surprised by blind joy with groping hands, like one who waits to find his dreams were true, into a happy, misty, twilight world, where all ran after light and joy and love. She slipped. There, far off raptures drew more close, and deep anticipations of delight, forever eager to be grasped and held, were never grasped, yet breathed strange ecstasy.
Yes. So all that heaviness of the eyeless, blind darkness, it has passed. All the sorrow of the night was dead. So this is Savitri's experience. She's surprised by a blind joy with groping hands. It's just feeling its way. She says it's like, Sri Aurobindo says, the joy that she feels, that she wakes up to, it's like somebody waking up to find that the beautiful dreams he was having are really true. So she wakes up into a happy, misty twilight world. Sometimes we wake up into a misty world here in Tamil Nadu. No, occasionally it happens. We wake up and it's as if the clouds have come down and we can't see very far. It's misty. We can't see things very, very clearly. So that is a characteristic of this dream twilight of the ideal. It is happy, but it is also misty. And it's twilight. It's between light and darkness. But it's very happy. There in that twilight world, everything is running after light and joy and love. She just slips and she finds herself in that world. It's a world where raptures, intense delights that seemed to be very, very far away, they come close. And there are deep anticipations of delight. Before the experience comes, there's a moment when you feel that it's going to come. Anticipation, you're expecting it. Perhaps we grown-up people, we don't feel that so much, but I remember when I was a child, how wonderful it was to anticipate something. Oh, Christmas is coming, or the birthday is coming, or the holidays are coming. It was as if the anticipation even was more delightful than the occasion itself. So these deep anticipations of delight, they want to be seized and held, but in that world they can't be grasped. They were never grasped. And yet that anticipation is breathing strange ecstasy, the ecstasy of anticipation. Sergei.
The whirling in the simplest fleeting sway, and air that there is not suffer too much light.
So this is this mistiness, indistinctness. We can't see clearly. But there are these lovely colors and pearl-winged, it's shiny like the surface of a pearl or mother of pearl. So that vague appearances swam, fleeting away, moving away. This is an air that did not dare to allow too much light. This half light is so beautiful. Varadarajan.
Vague feels well that vague passes green, vague feels, vague feels dim-hearted in a drifting face, vague catted white and white robe glimmering through the mist, vague space wander with the body of prayer, vague melodies touch the soul and thread pursued into harmonious distances unseen.
Let's pause there. So this is a picture that we can imagine, a misty picture, perhaps up in the mountains. You can't see the fields clearly. We can see there are fields, but we can't see them clearly. They are vague, misty. Pastures, shining, but they are vague. The trees can't be made out clearly. All these different scenes, dim-hearted. There doesn't seem to be much light in their heart. It's this twilight, in a drifting haze. The mistiness, the vagueness is drifting. Haze is another word for mist or fog. There are cows, vague cattle roamed. They also shine, they reflect a faint light glimmering through the mist. And one can hear vaguely spirits or maybe birds wandering with a bodiless cry. You only hear the sound, the call, you don't see them. Vague melodies, music, as if in the distance, half heard, touch the soul, and then they fade away. They fled. The soul would like to follow into harmonious distances, unseized. You can't quite catch that melody. And there's something about sounds heard at a distance at a far distance. If you heard the mic quite close up, they might be too loud and you might not like them. But in the distance, it sounds harmonious. So what is all this about? We can imagine this picture, these sounds. This is about the ideal. Ideals are very, very attractive and appealing. They give us a sense of anticipation, hope. They can be so beautiful because we don't see them clearly. There's this vagueness about them. I think we'll stop there for today, in the middle of a sentence. So this very, very beautiful description continues. It really seems like a wonderful world, the dream twilight of the ideal.
Although death walks beside us on life's road, a dim bystander at the body's start, and a last judgment on man's futile works, other is the riddle of its ambiguous face. Death is a stair, a door, a stumbling stride the soul must take to cross from birth to birth. A grey defeat, pregnant with victory, a whip to lash us towards our deathless state. The inconscient world is the spirit's self-made room. Eternal night, shadow of eternal day. Night is not our beginning, nor our end. She is the dark mother in whose womb we have hid, safe from too swift awaking to world pain. We came to her from a supernal light. By light we live, and to the light we go. Here, in this seat of darkness, mute and lone, in the heart of everlasting nothingness, light conquered now, even by that feeble beam. Its faint infiltration drilled the blind, deaf mass. Almost it changed into a glimmering sight that housed the phantom of an aureate sun, whose orb pupilled the eye of nothingness. A golden fire came in and burned night's heart. Her dusky mindlessness began to dream. The inconscient conscious grew. Night felt and thought. Assailed in the sovereign emptiness of its reign, the intolerant darkness paled and drew apart, till only a few black remnants stained that ray. But on a failing edge of dumb lost space, still a great dragon body sullenly loomed. Adversary of the slow struggling dawn, defending its ground of tortured mystery, it trailed its coils through the dead, martyred air, and curving fled down a grey slope of time. There is a morning twilight of the gods. Miraculous from sleep their forms arise, and God's long nights are justified by dawn. There breaks a passion and splendour of new birth, and hue-winged visions stray across the lids. Heaven's chanting heralds waken dim-eyed space. The dreaming deities look beyond the scene, and fashion in their thoughts the ideal worlds. Sprung from a limitless moment of desire that once had lodged in some abysmal heart. Past was the heaviness of the eyeless dark, and all the sorrow of the night was dead. Surprised by a blind joy with groping hands, like one who wakes to find his dreams were true, into a happy, misty, twilit world where all ran after light and joy and love, she slipped. There far-off raptures drew more close, and deep anticipations of delight, forever eager to be grasped and held, were never grasped, yet breathed strange ecstasy. A pearl-winged indistinctness fleeting swam, an air that dared not suffer too much light. Vague fields were there, vague pastures gleamed, vague trees, vague scenes dim-hearted in a drifting haze. Vague cattle white roamed glimmering through the mist. Vague spirits wandered with a bodiless cry. Vague melodies touched the soul and fled, pursued, into harmonious distances, unseen.